Welcome to Theory Paranormal's podcast, episode 2. I'm your host, Pax, with my partner here, Dalton. What we're going to discuss today is some various investigations that we both have done together and potentially not, and just give a little bit of insight as far as our experiences and the way we perceive things. So, without further ado, I introduce Mr. Dalton. Go ahead.
Well, how's everybody doing? What do you want? You want to start with you and or you want to start with one that we've done together, like, say, Clearwater Theater?
Okay, we can do that.
And what do you remember about Clearwater Theater?
Clearwater Theater is on the west coast of Florida. It's a 2-story movie theater that was there back in the heyday in the 40s. Used to be a really, really popular theater back in the day. And that particular theater is very grandioso, I can say. Very regal, has a great feel to it, but it's very stuffy. Not because it's old, but just because of the vibe that it gives off. And that particular theater actually had a death up in the top pews back in the day. And that was the whole premise of why me and Dalton went there, was to investigate that, to see if we could get any activity, and to see at the end of the night what we could compare notes to. We both worked separately, and then we compared everything and see what we came up with. We don't like muddying the waters a lot of times because we don't want anything to happen, or any spoken word, any devices, or anything whatsoever to influence one another. When we investigate independently, we want to be able to have free thought, a clear mind, clear space, clear energy, and just take it at face value for whatever happens. So there's your little plug on Clearwater Theater.
Well, I remember taking some random photos, and there's some on the Facebook page, on the Theory Paranormal Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
There's a picture of where I was up on the balcony, and I took a photo down towards the stage, and 2 big old orbs showed up right behind it. They were following. We had another person or two with us that night, if you remember, and They were following those people. And if you look closely in that photo, way down there on the left side of the stage, there was actually, I think, what looked to be like a clown or something standing there. I forget what they were doing, but anyway, he was dressed up like he was on stage performing, and I thought that was pretty interesting there.
Yep, most definitely. You know, with this particular theater, it was really neat and interesting because, when you watch shows from back in the 30s and 40s, it literally captured that whole embodiment essence of being at the theater. Ornate displays all over the walls, the woodwork in the ceiling, the grandeur of the big chandeliers, the velvet seating everywhere. You got to remember, back then, this was the place to go when you wanted to go out on a night on the town. This was the highlight of the week. So it was a really big production. It wasn't as it is now when we go to the theater, when it's just, maybe a spoken word or maybe a play if you're going to go see something. It really, really captured and carried the whole environment. And just thinking about it and recalling it right now, I just remember every single time I got to a different portion of the theater, I found myself literally just daydreaming about what life would be like. When you walk in, it's amazing. And, when the lights kind of dim, they go back up and they're like, hey, let's get ready to start. Everybody go in. Everybody, ushers in. Transport yourself. Imagine everybody looking very regal, dressed up, great, just to the nine, and just flowing into this beautiful, beautiful overall place where people grab their seats and just hang out. And every single time I would go to a different portion of it, I would imagine what it was like, not only for the actors or actresses, but what it was like for the common people that were part of it that nobody ever saw, like the stagehands or the grips or the equipment operators that operated the equipment or the people that were the managers trying to make everything happen. And the reason why I was putting myself in that mindset, because when you investigate, you want to be able to imagine what it was like back in the moment, if and when there is a trigger event that made that place be put on the map. So with that said, I'm walking down the hallway in the back, and to everybody else, they may look at it and say, okay, it's a hallway, a few doors to the changing rooms. You literally could walk in and see a room or two where they had everything in the back, where a movie star would be, whatever the case is. But to me, I'm thinking, how much energy was deposited here by raw emotions, by nerves, by stress, all of those things. Because all of those things, I like to think, via my opinion, plays into when you investigate. Rather that person is passed on or not. All of that is residue, per se.
Imprinting,
there you go. And so by the end of the night, it was really neat. I literally think I came up with 8 or 9 different locations where everything, it just had a different feeling almost.
It did. I think even when we were in the second floor dressing room area, we caught some EVPs there, but it did seem like different sections of the building was a different feeling. Like some of it was a little darker than most. Some of it made you feel a little lighter. But yeah, I agree with you on that. It was definitely everywhere you went, even into the stands. Even when you got up there on the second floor balcony, what was it? A person fell off the balcony or something?
If I remember correctly, somebody was killed.
They were shot, right?
Right. Somebody was killed right on the spot.
And then we found out. So we were told when we got there, and this is what we talked about in the first podcast about, you go in, you check the history, you get the evidence, you get not evidence, but you get some explanation of what might have happened there, and then you get it and you either find out more happened or you find out less. But I think we found out that there was more that happened there. More than one person died in that theater. It wasn't just a person and it, come to think of it, there was a big sound booth, the production booth up there on the second floor, right?
Yes.
There was
yep, and back in the second floor, back in the middle.
Back in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm,
That's where the person was shot. It was in the booth, I believe, wasn't it?
I would have to go back to my notes. That's one of the things when you do investigations, they kind of run money together, unfortunately. So
yeah, I'm trying to remember because that was probably one of the first investigations we ever done together.
Yeah, that was about 10 years ago?
That was more than that.
10?
I'd say probably
13?
15 or 20. 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to pull it up, but yeah, it's pretty interesting, man. The Clearwater Theater. We might have to go see if we can do that again if they'd let us in there.
Yeah, most definitely. You're going to hear us talk about a lot of different places. Anytime that we do talk about them, we are not trying to give broad strokes and paint that particular location in any certain light. We're not trying to say, hey, if you go here, this is going to happen. We're simply telling you our experience of what transpired for us. I wholeheartedly encourage anybody, if they hear anything about what we discuss, you can go ahead and email us at info@theoryparanormal.com and ask questions, or simply just pull it up on the wonderful internet and do research. Check it out.
Yeah, check it out and let us know what you find. And, if you got a question or if you want to debate something. I'm not a big debater myself. But if you got something you want to add to maybe some of the evidence that we had found. Now, that evidence there is not on the Facebook page. that was something that was our. I think that was our first investigation together. So that being 15 years ago, we didn't even really think about putting up a page and showing evidence at that time. We were just doing our thing as far as investigating and trying to figure out, what was going on in different places.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The other place we did together, Putnam Hotel, man.
Yep.
Putnam Hotel. That was over here behind the Athens Theater in DeLand, right?
Correct.
Okay.
In this particular hotel, if memory serves me correct, I want to say it was 6, 7 stories. It was an odd number, but it was pretty big. And
And a daycare center in the attic.
daycare center in the attic.
And then you had the guy that shot from the 3rd or 4th floor window, because the actors and actresses, they would act and perform at the Athens Theater, and then there was a little trail that cut back from behind the Athens Theater kind of through the woods, and it brought you in behind the Putnam Hotel where they all stayed. And I think the jealous boyfriend in the 3rd or 4th floor in that corner room saw his girl coming back with another guy walking through the woods. And they were looking a little friendly, I guess, with each other. So he pulled out, I guess, his rifle. Now, the thing I never could figure out is why he had a rifle in the room.
Right. Well, if my memory serves me correct, it ended up being ultimately bad information.
Was it bad information?
It was bad information.
Because they said they shot the guy, which wound up being her brother.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he was jealous. They thought, he thought that he was somebody else because he never met the brother. And so she was walking back. He went to go see the show, and he was walking back through the woods with her, and the guy shot him through the window.
Yeah.
So that was bad information on their part.
Yep. It was a corner room. I remember that room like it's still video played in my head. You walk in, it was a very, very small little apartment, hotel room, and you looked over in the corner and you could see out to the back parking lot. And one thing I can definitely attest to, there is a lot of places we researched and investigated in Florida, for instance, and a lot of these towns that you hear us talk about, they were very prominent back in the 30s and 40s. So they have locations where people may or may not know about. At one given point in time or another, they were open for investigations. Some of them, it's like, no, that's okay, we're good. And then sometimes, as luck may have it, and they come back around, we'll get a phone call, and they're like, hey, you know what? Yeah, it's fine. We'll open the doors for you. And that's the neat thing when you investigate, that you have these opportunities sometimes that just magically fall in your lap. And it's like, what are we doing this weekend? Well, I'm doing this and I got this plan. Well, I just got this phone call. And then it's just like, pump the brakes. Let's go get all the gear. It's like Ghostbusters as far as the scene where they're throwing everything and, Ecto 1, and it's like, let's go. That's how those moments are sometimes.
Yeah, they are. Well, I remember that one time we did a private investigation, and you'd got the call at like 5 or 6 o'clock at night that they okayed it.
Yep.
And you were in the middle of dinner. I was in the middle of dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And you hit me up, and you're like, hey, that place over there, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah. And you're like, they okayed us to come investigate because the activity's picking up.
Yep.
And I said, okay, well, when are we going to schedule it? And you're like, within the hour or so. I had to stop eating. You stopped eating.
Yep. Met up and went and took care of business. and that's the thing.
That's the one too where the shampoo bottle came out of the holder
mm-hmm.
and fell into the bathtub.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was pretty interesting because imagine there being like a lip to hold shampoo bottles. Looks like a little hole that's in the side of the wall and it has a metal bar.
That was actually a basket. Those little baskets
that's
you
right,
buy
that's right.
and you hang it over the shower
Mm-hmm.
head.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they had that. it was like one little single basket over the shower head, and it had like 4 or 5 bottles of shampoo and body wash and whatever in it. And I remember I caught this little girl standing in the bathroom when I walked by it. And
so you're talking like what, like a spirit or entity or etherical being? I mean, what?
more of a shadow figure.
Okay.
Because she was, I don't want to say a dark shadow figure. I just seen the outline of her in the shower curtain, the way the outside light was coming in through the bathroom window. And you can see, and at first I thought I was just seeing things because I had to clear my eyes 2 or 3 times. And I couldn't tell if she was standing in the shower, behind the curtain, or standing outside the shower in front of the curtain, but you could definitely see the outline of a little girl. And that's when we had a buddy of ours with us investigating at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And he walked by, and I said, "Hey, man, do you see that right there?" And he's like, "What?" And it took him a second. He goes, "That looks like a little girl." And I said, "Okay," because I didn't tell him anything. You know what I'm saying? I just said, "Do you see anything?" And that's one thing I like about how we investigate, too. We don't try to give anybody information. We might say, "Hey, did you see that?" And when they say that they saw basically the same thing we saw, then we know, okay, we're not seeing things. And somebody mentioned the mother.
Mm-hmm.
You guys were in another area of the house talking about a painting.
Yep.
And somebody mentioned the mother or something, and that's when the shampoo bottle.
Yep. Because the the mother ended up unfortunately passing away.
Yeah.
So.
And the shampoo bottle flipped up out of the, kind of like it just real calmly just lifted up and fell over into the tub.
Mm-hmm. I remember that
out
video.
Of the basket.
It was surreal because it's very rare to be part of experiences.
Poltergeist, especially.
But when they happen, you know, even to this day, with everything I've personally experienced, which you'll learn over the various podcasts that we'll put out, it doesn't make a difference if it's the first time or the last time. It still gives goosebumps sometimes. It's still, your jaw's dropping as you're mouthing to your, to your team member, like, did you get that? Like, did you see that?
That's the funny thing about us, man, is we get excited where people, we've had guests in our investigations before, and some of them wind up like, I'm not going back in there. I'm not doing that.
Yep.
Where, like I did a private investigation one time, and there was actually, the house was vacated for 6 months, and I found that some people were coming up there and they were doing witchcraft up in there.
Yeah.
And I was helping the guy out. Now, this was up in North Georgia, and when I started talking about witchcraft or satanic, any kind of satanic deals or anything, I got this growl that came out, like a really deep growl, came out of the closet. And what I do is I put everybody up against the wall in front of me in the room and had them sit on the floor.
Who, the people that live there, or the people that were in the room investigating, or?
Well, the people that lived there. I did that investigation by myself, actually, which is probably not the good thing to do, but
hey, sometimes opportunity presents itself, and you wanna go forward and do the right thing to help people as soon as possible.
Again, helping people is number one. And you were down here, so I put them against the wall, had them sit on the floor. And then what I did was I created a barrier, basically, so that the entities, whatever came, could not pass me. I told them straight out, you're not going to walk past me. You're not going to affect these people sitting here. You're going to stop right where I'm at. And there was evidence that the room behind me was colder than the room in front of me, just that split width of my body. But anyway, when that growl came out of that closet, the friend of mine who asked me to come do the investigation, he literally said, "Dude, what the F was that?" And I said, "I ain't got no idea." And the whole time I'm standing in the dark going, "Yeah, this is great, man." These people are scared out of their mind. And I'm sitting there going, "Yeah, this is what we're here for, And I didn't want to, get all excited because, that was cool. to have that happen, and it did it. It did it a couple more times, and then at one time it shot the flashlight off the bed. I had a flashlight on. He had a big king size 4-poster bed type deal,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a flashlight on each corner, and it pushed one. It like threw one off, like it kind of shot at me for about a foot and then hit the floor. But yeah, man, that's it's crazy how excited we get when something like that goes off. You know, it's that's what we're there for.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's funny because sometimes you're waiting for something the whole night, no matter what it is. It could be a flashlight turning on and off, a EMF detector.
And just to say though, we know the flashlight can be debunked.
Yeah.
So we do use multiple flashlights with colored lenses,
Multiple things.
and we do make sure that there's more than one K2 meter, and our cell phones are not around. We just to let you know, we do know all the debunking stuff. So
Right. And, you know, we use multiple methods, you know, as Dalton said, you know, multiple flashlights, multiple devices. And, you know, when you put all this stuff down, you could sit there all night and get not an iota of anything, nothing. And then you do. And it's usually, I mean, you know, this is the long game. You never get into something and it's just like, boom, stuff going crazy. And you're like, hey, you know, I knew it was going to be like that. But the point being is that when it does happen, I don't care who you are, you can't be muddled down and desensitized to interacting with the other side or something. You're, you know, for me, it's like a little kid on Christmas. Walk up, see the tree, see the presents, you know, whatever interactivity I get, that's my present for the day. So I'm all about it.
that's a gift, man. It's definitely a present, man. It's just, you know, and the thing is when you're in these investigations and you're doing that and you get, you know, you don't get anything. What I tell people, you know, because you get people all the time, you know, you're a paranormal investigator. Yeah, well, I want to go on an investigation with you. And I tell them, you know what an investigation is? It's like fishing. You can go out on the boat one day and sit out there and cast your line and not catch a thing. Or you can go out on the boat one day and cast your line and you might get a few nibbles. Or you can go on the boat and cast your line and catch the biggest fish you ever caught.
Yep.
So I've always told people it's just like fishing, man. You might get something, you might not. But what I do tell them is, if you're going to bring the negativity into my investigation, don't do that, because we definitely ain't going to get nothing. It's just been a proven fact for us. I don't know about other investigators, but for us, if we've had some, I would say, skeptic or a non-believer that was just bringing negative energy to the investigation, the entities of the place we're at, they don't want to come out and talk to you. I've always figured, like, you know, they're standing in the corner looking at us. I can feel them standing there, but why ain't they communicating? And you'll get one person that leaves the investigation to go to his car or do something, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 boom. And when that person shows up, they get quiet, so you know exactly who it is. But
Yep.
you can't bring negativity or anything to the investigation. It just, you know.
No, not at all. And we'll get into all that later on.
Sure.
Which Dalton's, you know, referencing energy and how it affects potentially, you know, the body and the psyche and all sorts of stuff. But
you're right, man. I mean, you can go to investigation, you might not get nothing. Maybe they don't want to talk to you, but you can go back a second time, you get a nibble. You go back to third or fourth time, you get a nibble. The fourth, fifth time, you get a bite.
Yep.
Once they get used to you coming around. May Stringer House in Brooksville was like that. You remember I said I never wanted to do May Stringer?
Yep.
Just didn't want to do it. And
Where's Brooksville at?
Brooksville, down there by Arcadia, West Coast, south of Tampa.
Okay, so you're talking Florida.
Yes.
Okay.
Or north of Tampa. It's right north of Tampa. It's north of Tampa, Brooksville. May Stringer, anybody that knows paranormal probably knows May Stringer House.
Okay.
But I never wanted to do it. We had certain people we knew that was going over there investigating that house all the time, and I just didn't want to be like, hey, I'm following you to go investigate, you know, and I want to do my own thing. But here's the interesting part about that. The most interesting part is that one of our old friends that used to investigate with us, um, we got invited to go to the Octagon Hall up in Kentucky.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah. So um, the Octagon Hall, if you don't know about it, I believe it's in Franklin, Kentucky, right there at the border of Kentucky and Tennessee on 65. Confederate soldier there, well-known Confederate. He built his house like an octagon, and the only people that were doing it back in that time was over in England, and it was dealing with air conditioning. They would open the windows because of the octagon shape. You could open the windows in the house, and it would cool the house. So I said, man, I'm not going to drive all the way to Kentucky to do one investigation. And we did it with some certain people there. And I said, I'm not going to drive up there and do whatever. So he said, hey, man, guess what? And I said, what? And he goes, I got us into Perryville Battlefield.
What?
Yes.
Get out of here.
A Civil War battlefield.
Really?
At night, not the day. We were allowed to get on that battlefield at night.
Now, if my memory serves me correctly, isn't there a close relative, maybe, that you're part of a lineage that's concerning everything?
From what I'm told from my father, my fifth greatest uncle is Ulysses S. Grant.
Get out of here.
That's what he tells me. And he's buried, I buried my father in Jefferson Barracks in St. Louis, Missouri, and that's where the makeshift grave of Grant is.
Okay.
And also my grandfather, his father's buried there. All my family's from Missouri, and they're from around the area where Grant lived. So I've never checked my family tree or anything.
Okay.
But from what I gather from other family members, it's pretty much legit that my fifth greatest uncle is Ulysses S. Grant.
Wow.
So my ties to the Civil War are pretty, my interest, I should say, since I found that out as a kid. When I found that out as a kid, my interest in the Civil War grew like 200%.
Oh, wow.
Because I wanted to know who Grant was. I wanted to know about the war. I wanted to know. Now, being that I'm the only Southern person born in my family, imagine that. So I was born here in Florida.
Okay.
So I'm the only Southern guy in my family. My sister was born in Idaho, and everybody else was born in, all my family members come from Missouri. So
Is that really how you say Missouri?
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 I don't know. Show me.
That's where I heard a certain person, from a certain show always said Missouri.
Yeah, that's their term. I say Missouri because from the South we like to pronounce things. But
Right.
so anyway, I said, really, Perryville Battlefield, man, Civil War battlefield. They're going to allow us to go on the battlefield at night. He goes, man, we can do whatever we want. So long story short, we can talk about this investigation at a later time in depth. But what intrigued me was we investigated there. Next day, drove from there to Octagon Hall and did the investigation at Octagon Hall, which people can go on Theory Paranormal Facebook page, and the video of the ball moving was actually done at Octagon Hall.
Ball? What ball?
The beach ball.
Beach ball.
The video of the beach ball.
Okay.
You remember that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so little Mary died at like 6, 7 years old. She was dancing around. I know I'm jumping around, but to tell you a little bit about the ball real quick, little Mary, they used to cook on open fires. They didn't have stoves and stuff. They cooked on open fire. She was dancing around the cooking area with the fire, and her dress caught on fire. She burnt to death.
Oh, no.
Yes, very sad. So something told me when we walked into the house to go to Mary's room, she wanted to play. And so we went up there to Mary's room, and a couple other investigators were there, and this lady was trying to get her to roll the ball. Come on, Mary, blah, blah, blah. Well, I see Mary, she kept playing with the flashlight over here. And her dad was Confederate soldier, so I had my Florida 7th cavalry Confederate hat on,
Okay.
of course, Southern accent. And I said, Mary, I told her real quick, I said, what you're going to do is you're going to quit playing with that flashlight or I'm going to take it away from you. And I need you to come over here and move the ball. And that's what she did, basically. So that's the video of the ball moving. Now, the way that it's brought out in the audio, we were still playing around with audio. The audio don't match the video. Obviously, our friend that used to investigate with us, you hear him say the ball moved before the ball moved, but it was just on how you edit to put the audio in with the video. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
so anyway, we get done with the Octagon Hall and we're driving back to Florida. And I turn around and I look and I go, I got this feeling, man, we need to go investigate the May Stringer house. And so our friend looked at us and looked at me and said, well, you said you didn't want to do it. And I said, no, I want to do it now. There's just something telling me we got to do it. So come to find out, we investigated May Stringer. And come to find out, her second husband fought at Perryville.
Really? You talking about the owner of the May Stringer house back in the day?
Well, you had the doctor, the first guy, he died of consumption.
Okay, so he was the original owner or the original husband?
Original first husband.
Okay.
Original builder of the house.
Okay.
The original part of the house. Then the second husband, I can't think of the guy's name because we're just winging this right now and I don't have that information in front of me, but I believe he was a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then he built the add-on to the house. But this guy fought at Perryville, the second husband. So her first husband died young of consumption. If people don't know what consumption is, that's tuberculosis. He died of that. And so she went for quite a long time being single and running that whole plantation by herself.
Okay.
And the Civil War was going on. This guy fought at Perryville. Now,
Oh, wow.
we can, like I said, we'll talk about Perryville later. But anyway, he was held captive in Atlanta. He was captured and held captive in Atlanta.
Huh.
When the war was over, he walked from Atlanta all the way back to Brooksville. So it's amazing that the guy walked that far. Now, this is what's being told by us from the history of the May Stringer. And I remember is Frank Saxon. Frank Saxon is the second husband's name. John May was the first one. Frank Saxon was the second husband. And he was considered a Confederate hero. Anyway, but he fought at Perryville, man. So my whole thing was we went to Perryville, and I had no interest in doing an investigation at May Stringer until we went to Perryville. So do you think there's that connection with Perryville brought me to May Stringer kind of deal?
Yeah. I really want to jump in all over this in the pool.
Go ahead. Jump in the pool, bro. I got some extra floaties.
right. Make some waves on this one. That, I kind of touched base on it earlier. There's so many things, at least for me and Dalton, when you get into a situation, sometimes it doesn't make sense. It's not prevalent. It doesn't stand out, and you're like, okay, whatever, because you're so caught up in the moment of what's going on. Weeks, months, even maybe a year or two later, it just clicks. And then you can see the broad spectrum of how everything that shouldn't have made sense, that shouldn't have been tied together, that shouldn't have been a coincidence, you start seeing all these things that just came together to make something happen or to get information or to give information. And, there's people out there that or say, oh, it's the will of the universe. It's meant to be, or it's kismet or it's energy or all these things. Well, the thing is I'm a realist, analytical and logical, like the best of them.
Mm-hmm.
But because of my experiences in the paranormal and things that I've experienced and seen and felt and heard, it opened up me to have that side of me open that door and say, what if? What if it might be metaphysically related to energy or things of the spiritual plane or astral plane or different things? What if there's more factors going on than what I can perceive and understand right now at this moment.
Well, when you say that though, when you do that, so I understand what you're getting at.
Mm-hmm.
It relates to, makes you think about, how is it that I never been to the May Stringer house before, but I go to Perryville, and now I want to investigate the May Stringer and find out the second husband fought there at Perryville.
Mm-hmm.
So did this guy, like, is his energy still left at Perryville?
Very well may be.
Then how is his energy left at May Stringer when we did do May Stringer and we find out that he's also there too?
You know, for that particular question, I will pose this opinion. I kind of wholeheartedly believe when you pass on physically, but spiritually, in a sense, energy-wise, I dare say, it can go multiple places at the same time. It can be multiple places, but yet be at one place too. Now, can I prove that theoretically? No. Can I find a factual book scientifically to account for that opinion? No. Is there anybody anywhere that can say this opinion is valid and indeed true, can be remade to resemble what the opinion is? No. But I just hold that opinion because of my multitudes of years with the paranormal, with my background in metaphysical stuff, and some other things that I get into some other time that gave me that opinion. And if there's anything I can lend credence to, is I'll say this final point on this subject. Scientifically speaking, think of energy. What's the core components that we learned about energy, in school when we were younger? Energy can be comprised of gas. It can be comprised of a solid, right?
I guess I never graduated high school, so I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Dalton always got jokes. There's multiple forms of energy. So,
well, let's take it to a realistic paranormal investigating standpoint. We know there's three kinds of haunts.
mm-hmm.
There's the intelligent haunt, which is when they communicate with you. We know there's a residual haunt, which is a replay in time where they don't pay attention to you. It's just a replay of them doing something. Say, like a guy says, hey, every night at 1:20 in the morning, I see my grandmother walking to the kitchen. But when you go investigate, the grandmother doesn't pay attention. She doesn't communicate. There's no communication. There's no nothing. That's a residual haunt. Am I right?
Yep.
So the third one you have is called imprinting. And that is where even people living today can leave their energy in a spot. So if I sit right here and I get angry, upset, or mad, or I feel sad and I get up and move from this chair, I'm going to leave that energy right here in this spot. Now, if somebody comes and sits behind me and is sensitive enough, everybody's sensitive. They've all got senses.
So you're talking about sensitive meaning gifted. Maybe
they're not even gifted. They just don't know they have a sense. Everybody has that sense. They can, like, you can take somebody you don't know or you can take somebody you do know, let's say, that's not even near the paranormal or doesn't do anything.
Okay.
And and you're like, hey, dude, how come you didn't buy that house or rent that place? And they're like, it just didn't feel comfortable to me, because they were picking up, the negative imprinting that was there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, come to find out some dude got, murdered or those problems were, the people living there were very violent or whatever, something happened, and that's what he picked up on. But I believe everybody has those abilities to feel that, because you see it every day.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody walks in, I feel sick to my stomach. They walk out of the building, they feel fine, or they, whatever. So anyway, for the paranormal aspect, or let's go to the investigating aspect. Let's say that. What if it was an imprint of him that I stumbled across? And that imprint, because during that Perryville investigation, I don't want to get too much into the investigation, but everybody thought I was going to pass out because you know that the spirits always attach themselves to me, and I
Mm-hmm.
always during the investigation I look like I'm tired and I'm going to pass out because all the energies are clinging to me doing whatever.
Just simply imagine for anybody that's done physical fitness exercise, and at that point, though, you're like, I'm done, I'm whooped, and you feel drained. That drain instantly hits you. You know, correct me if I'm wrong. I know how it is for me. That's what kicks in out of nowhere.
It drains you, but you still have the ability to move forward. You're just sluggish.
Yeah.
You feel like you you in your mind you don't feel like, hey, I'm done. I'm like you would working out. Like I'm over, my muscles hurt, I'm done, I'm going home.
Yeah.
In the investigation, you do feel drained and you feel sluggish and you feel tired and you just feel like, okay, I know what's happening because we've done this for so long. You know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have photos of that on the Theory Paranormal Facebook page
Mm-hmm.
that I was walking back to the vehicle and I was throwing the camera up over my shoulder and taking pictures of large mist coming off my backside. Now, it wasn't steam. I know some debunkers are going to be like, could have been because you were hot and it was cold. No, it was warm outside. There was no fog out there. Nobody was smoking. We always make sure whoever investigates with us does not smoke cigarettes. I mean, that's kind of a rule I have because if you do, take it outside. Because at the moment, somebody wants to take a picture if you're lit up in the building, which most places you can't smoke inside anyway.
Right.
So we're outside in the middle of this Civil War battlefield. I'm throwing my camera over my shoulder, and you can literally see these huge mists coming off my back. And if you look inside, there's some faces in there. Of course, everybody, like, first thing your eyes do when you look at something that's not very clear is you see a face. Well, there's obviously a few faces in these mist clouds. And to me, that was all that energy, those entities,
Mm-hmm.
because that was a very bloody battle. That battle was very bloody. And that was all them entities leaving me. I was walking away from where I'm gonna get into something else here and I hate it.
It's so hard to explain these
It's
stories because
it's-
things segue into one another, and there's so much to offer up. There really
you know
is.
when we did that house in DeLand, that big old house that was the voodoo doll?
Yes.
Okay, and you remember we found out there's barriers in the paranormal?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's lines that they can't cross.
Supposedly, from the research we did and multiple people we consulted on
Exactly.
via their specialities.
Exactly. So I was thinking that, walking back to the car, I was leaving the area where they couldn't go. So they were either that or they were stronger back there, but they were leaving me heading back to where I came from. Because the more closer I got to the car, the better I felt. I didn't feel so sluggish. That's what turned me on to flip the camera over my shoulder and just start taking pictures for no reason.
Right.
And I got these forms coming off my back. And you can tell, like, the woman I was with at the time, she was walking next to me, and you can clearly see, like, when I took the photo, like, that's her shoulder. The glare is different coming off of her.
Mm-hmm.
But to the other side, you can see the mist form, and you can see what's in it. So, but back to the imprinting, maybe I ran into an imprint of this guy and figured that I got to go check out May Stringer for some ungodly reason. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But Mr. Saxon, that would be his name. And he also has a place down there in the Saxon house that he built.
Huh.
If you remember that.
Yeah, the Saxon house?
Yes. It's
Yep.
right down the street, or actually like a few blocks down from May Stringer, the May Stringer house.
Right.
You've been to the May Stringer house.
Yes.
What were some of your experiences there?
May Stringer house. Well, the house is known for a little girl that's on the property. And I remember specifically when I was trying to capture some audio that I was recording. And, depending on the term that you want to do. And then it can be, coined as a voice box or a radio box. And it's nothing more than a device that, think about sitting in the car and you want to tune in a radio station as you're driving along and you hit the seek or scan and it jumps to the next frequency. Well, that's what the devices do. They automatically jump from one point to the next. And I'll break it down for you real quick for anybody who doesn't understand. The reason why that's important is the device is consistently jumping. Now, I did some mathematics and measured a bunch of stuff out, got all scientific on it. And what it came down to is that I found out from it jumping from one radio station to the next, there is literally a 0.2, 0.3 of a second. Okay, so we're talking a third of one whole second where there's dead silence. Now, for anybody that doesn't know, radio stations put out energy. That's how your cars are able to hear it. And so you got energy on one end of the spectrum going to where the radio is going to. That's why it's dead. You have the energy on the other side of the spectrum where the radio is leaving where there was power. So you have that space in the middle that's pure white noise. And what I was able to formulate and come up with is that dead space is a virtual playground for spirits. And if you ever do this, look it up on the internet. It's all over. You can hear words. You can even hear sometimes phrases. But you can hear responses to things that you are asking. Okay? And I'm not talking about, somebody reading a paragraph to you. I'm just simply talking about yes, no, okay, hi, or different things.
Well, we had one that one time. We had that satellite radio. And we'd sit there if we had a way to put the knob to where it would turn itself.
Turn itself. So we're sitting there spinning this knob for an hour and a half. Our thumbs are getting tired. We're switching back and forth.
I think we used all 10 of our freaking fingers just to keep the thing going. But it was
right.
We did that one time where in the satellite radio came out clear, and we did have a full phrase. And I don't remember what that phrase was, but it was something. Let me say this: it was this long. It was like, "Yes, I shot them," kind of thing. It was a sentence, and it had punctuality to it. I mean, you could tell there was like he said some vowels, he said whatever nouns and whatever. I mean, you can clearly, distinctly see this is a sentence.
Yep. And the neat thing about that is this: those particular items, mostly you hear live right then and there. You may have seen on TV or different places where they really ask a bunch of questions. Can you hear me? What color am I wearing? Whatever, hypothetically, analogy's sake there. And then they play it back and hear, and you hear, a word. Well, the difference is with what we were using, it was live right then and there, and that's it. So having the ability to ask a question and getting a valid response that's on the nose, like, am I male or female? You just pose the question out loud. And then you hear something come back to you and say male. Okay, first of all, there's a 50-50 chance because you gave two answers, male or female. But also for it to be true, in fact, the correct answer and be right at that exact moment after you asked, you got to sit to yourself and go, wait,
what just happened?
What just happened? So the reason why I bring all this up is because I was using a voice box at the May Stringer house. And I remember walking along the side. It was one of these beautiful houses, 3 stories long, had a big wraparound porch, wooden banisters, the slats, all around it. Very, very, very regal from the 1800s. And I just remember saying, the little girl's name, hey, if you're there, I'm so-and-so, let me know you're there. And I heard a laugh, and then I heard a little girl say hi.
Well, there was 3 children there.
Yep.
So they had the one girl from the first marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was, I think, a son and another girl from the second marriage. I believe is what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get something in the attic. What'd they call the guy in the attic?
It was like Mr. Meanie or Mr. Nasty or something.
Yeah, they gave him
like
a different name now. I recently went back to May Stringer, and they call him like Jim or Dave or some crap like that. But not to knock him. I mean, yeah, Mr. Meanie sounds a little mean. So, I could see them giving the guy a name, but they gave him a name. But what you said you had a good experience in the attic up there with him.
Yeah. Yeah. That because the reason why I say Mr. Meanie, Mr. Nasty is because of the fact supposedly there were some people that investigated up there before, and
he doesn't like women.
Some people's experiences weren't positive in the fact of not getting activity, or even up to the point of some people having what appears to be maybe a scratch on the arm. You look at the arm, for a fact someone has their sleeves up or they're wearing a short sleeve shirt. Next thing you know, their arm looks like it has a miniature little welt on it or a little scratch. Nothing's touched them. They're sitting there for 3 hours. So, but for me, I did get a lot of particular activity that night, and I used some EMF detectors and some flashlights, and it for me at least, for that particular moment and night, I did get some responses. So I remember it takes a lot of people back when maybe you're not a paranormal investigator and it's your first time doing it. And you have all of these notions in your head of what you see on TV. And then you go there and then you sit there for 5 hours and you're just staring at each other like it's a bus stop.
And you don't even realize they filmed that crap for like 2 weeks and then picked out every like a day here and a day here or what
right. Right. But my point being is that to have people it be their first experience and expect to get results.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like we would do round robin. Okay, we've been in this particular part of the house for so long. Okay, everybody, let's switch after an hour, hour and a half. And it's like you pass some people going, hey, how'd you do? Oh, nothing. Oh, okay. People rolling their eyes, People just shaking their head. No, I need to get something to drink. I have to go to the bathroom quick. It's like, oh, okay. And then later on, you pass each other again. How'd you do? Oh, we got tons of activity. And then everybody else is kind of glaring at you like, really? we were just there. We got nothing. Nothing.
Not even a mouse fart, nothing.
Right. And that's something that's also really interesting is the fact, from my experiences, I would like to think, for all intents and purposes, we are nothing more than a spiritual walking encyclopedia of our lives. Because you can go into a place and investigate, not physically reveal anything about yourself, and say you have a ghost box, or you have one of those devices that has a built-in vocabulary of so many words, and it will just say words randomly. And next thing you know, it's saying things that are relevant to you. For instance, I served in the military, proudly.
Thanks for your service.
Yep, anytime. And a lot of times when I go to cemeteries or I go to other particular places, it's interesting because I will walk in and I'll see the word salute on the screen pop up, and then I'll pose a question, why? And then it's like, oh, another word will pop up and it'll be like military. I can't make this up. It happens.
And how many words are in the thing?
It depends on what device you use. Some have a Rolodex of 500. Some have 1,000. But these devices are made.
So let's just take the 500. I mean, out of 500 words,
right.
What's the chance of it picking 2 words that resemble you?
Right. And my point being is that a lot of times I wholeheartedly feel that spirits are able to read you like a virtual Rolodex of going, okay, this person's this. Here's their experiences that we see. They automatically know things, They just know. And that information's power, though, because going into a situation where somebody's getting blocked as far as not getting any activity and you show up. That's happened before. I went to a cemetery where I know people were getting 0 activity. And I walked over to a particular part of the cemetery that had a few graves of soldiers. And next thing I know, I see, I'm hearing thank you. And I'm seeing thanks pop up on the screen. And it's like, whoa, And then I realize, I see the person, they passed away and all that stuff, and they're what branch they're in. And I'm like, hey, I appreciate your service. Yeah, I served. And it's just something as simple as that.
And I think the spirits choose who they want to talk to. I mean,
without a doubt.
Because like when we first met and we started doing investigations, we were actually there was a small group of investigators, and we actually were split up into opposite teams, if you want to call them teams, whatever. You were on one side of the building, I was on the other, but
Yep.
we did another investigation where me and you, I think it was I want to say Casadega, but
Casadega, Florida.
yeah, Casadega. We
Okay.
remember we walked around out in the field, and
Casadega, just for anybody that is not familiar with Casadega, you have, up north where Salem is. Then you have Casadega. Casadega was known to be built upon the foundation of being a spiritual camp before it got made into a mini university / learning center back in the coming of the ages of the early 1900s.
that's where the Devil's Chair is too.
There's an item there, correct, called the Devil's Chair, which is a whole different conversation, but
yes,
you're
that's
more
a
than
whole-
welcome to look that up.
So I want to say it was Casadega that me and you were able to get together as a team, and when we did, we got tons of evidence that other people weren't getting. So I also think not only do the spirits choose who and when and how they want to talk to somebody, but I also think it's the energy that feeds off the person you're with while you're investigating. If the two of you are putting off very strong and good energy, let me just say this: what place have we gone to where we not have had any evidence?
That's a hard one. You see, there's been times where me and Dalton, we've done investigations with multitudes of people, of ages, race, creed, colors, you name it, everything. My point being is I'm talking about diversity, okay? So we've been to situations where it doesn't make a difference who's there. There's nothing. Grasshoppers, literally. Just dead as a doornail, no activity the whole night. And you go home and, yeah, you're kind of bummed out, but you're like, one day at a time. It's kind of like, hey, the sun rises tomorrow. There's going to be something else out there. But there's times where we've done stuff, and it's just like gangbusters come left and right, nonstop, the whole night.
I only think that's happened to us like once or twice. What I'm trying to say is every investigation we have had, we've caught some great evidence. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like your energy and my energy together just click.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go to investigation, if and this is what I tell people, if it's haunted, they're going to show themselves if we come there, because they want to talk to us. And that's the one thing I found out. Like when we were separated and we were by ourselves, yeah, they talk to me, or I'll come over to you and go, "Did you get anything?" "Yeah, I kind of got something." But you talk to everybody else in the group, they're like, "I ain't get nothing," And it's like, okay, well then you put the two of us together. It's kind of like, and we'll get into psychics and mediums later down the road too, but it's kind of like if you get a psychic or a medium and you get a couple of them together, they grow stronger. Like their energies combine.
The energies play off each other. Just to touch base real quick, this is an analogy that I can best describe it. And this is just, once again, through many years of just sitting and watching how things happen. Think of a lighthouse in the ocean, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's all dark everywhere. But then out of nowhere, you see that light barely, and for that split second, you see it piercing the veil, and it's bright right at you.
The veil or the veil?
The veil. Sorry.
Are you hungry?
I went to a steakhouse earlier today, and I was thinking about earlier lunch. But, that light comes to you and you see it. I believe people that are truly gifted, that have the aptitude, maybe they can hear things, maybe they see things, maybe they can feel things, hypothetically, maybe they can feel energy. That's a whole nother podcast show. But point being is, as individuals like that, they're that shining beacon of light. And that darkness all around, for analogy speaking sake, is the other side. So when certain people get introduced to environments where things are going on, it's kind of like, hey, whoa, wait a minute, who do we have here? it's like, hey, this person may be able to be more receptive to what we have to say or put out there or experience.
I think they can tell that you can communicate with them. Like they know, like, okay, this person, no. So let's use the light analogy. And maybe you're right. Maybe you're the light in the darkness that they know that, hey, I can come to this person and communicate with. And not only will they listen to me, but they'll spread my message or they'll do whatever. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
I kind of agree with that. It's kind of a unique way of putting it, but yeah, I would say.
Yep. So,
So Perry, I mean, May Stringer was cool though. May Stringer, we got a lot of evidence. I got a bunch of evidence on Theory Paranormal page from May Stringer as well.
you talking the Facebook page?
Yeah, it's a Facebook page.
Okay.
The website, what's the website again? We just got.
We're going to be launching a new website also. It's just going to be, get to it by simply going to www.theoryparanormal.com.
Okay, cool. So the other one, the info, or did we do a live one? We did a live one for the live streaming.
Correct. We're also going to be doing live streaming. So that is going to be theoryparanormal.live, Live, when we do live streaming for investigations. You'll just be able to go directly there and just click on it and watch it just like it's TV.
Yes, and we're not going to do the, keep the camera on my ugly mug. You're going to actually see what we see. You're going to hear what we hear. We're working very hard right now to get those devices set up the proper way to where, maybe you as a watcher or listener, you decide to watch a live stream. I might have my head turned, that camera's still looking straight, and you might say, wow, we just saw a shadow figure go through the doorway there, and we'll play it back. And you might be the one that catches the evidence, not us.
Yep. And the other component to that is when we do go for the live streaming, we're going to involve the audience to where they can communicate with us and let us know things. So if we don't catch something and somebody tips us off, then we will actually right then and there be like, oh, hey, soccer player 2042 just said, hey, I think I saw something in the corner over there.
Right, that's what I was saying.
Or I think I heard something because I got my headphones on. And then it's like, all right.
We stop right there. We reel it back and we see what they heard or saw to verify it, because that's what we do. May Stringer, man, we have spent quite a bit of time at May Stringer.
Yes, most definitely.
What's your favorite, whether it be by yourself or with the group or with me? What do you think was one of your most unique favorite investigations you ever done?
I would like to say,
to this day, because we're still going to investigate some more. You might find a new one.
I would say Moon River Brewery in
That's
Georgia.
interesting.
In Georgia.
I've never been there. That's an interesting. I'd like to go there.
Moon River Brewery. I highly encourage anybody to go there because they have amazing food and drinks, but it has a deep, deep history in the South for things that were related to militaristic ideas and stuff. Back in the day, the building got took over and was used for multiple reasons. But that particular place, it's a 2-story building, but it's actually 3 because you have the massive attic up top.
Interesting.
And they only allow certain people to go up to the 3rd floor. You have to get pre-authorization and stuff. The second time I went there a while ago, they actually stopped doing that. But the reason why I bring up that place is simply because of the fact it made me laugh because I follow being able to wear certain stones or crystals and things of that nature to help me out sometimes, depending on the situation.
So right there, are you doing like a Wiccan type thing, or?
For myself, I kind of follow the proponent of more of a spiritual side of the house, not necessarily Wiccan, but I believe wholeheartedly that various stones and crystals and so forth can interact with your chakras in your body and stuff, and potentially assist you.
And again, that's going to be another conversation we'll have. But tell me at least, like, because I'm interested, because you know me, I just go in boots and guns a glazing.
Yep, yep.
And
So what it was is I remember I brought this particular stone, put up my left cargo pocket of my shorts, and it
did you like turn your hat sideways, throw salt over your shoulder, and walk backwards too, or what? I mean, come on, man.
Walk backwards in three counterclockwise circles, you know, and recite the Pledge of Allegiance backward. No,
Yeah, something
no.
like that.
What it came down to is, I remember I was in this particular room. We were all huddled together, and about 8 people in this small room that was, for all intents and purposes, almost a closet. And it was towards the end of the night, and I remember it was so hot. I mean, just so hot. The humidity was kicking. You know, you're up there in the second, third floor. You're feeling it, you know. And I just made some comment like, hey, let me know you're here. You know, go for it. That was it. I wasn't, you know, trying to give anything. I wasn't trying to, you know, be belligerent with, you know, getting all loud and everything, trying to provoke. And when I did that, this rock is in my cargo pocket. So I want everybody to think about if you have like a set of keys in your pocket and you go to grab them and you put your hand over your pocket on top of the jeans, like everybody can see you, or shorts.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, you feel your hand on top of said keys and you feel the pressure into your leg some, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you push down a little bit.
Right.
Well, I felt after I said, hey, let me know you're here, that particular stone I put there, just to kind of just keep energy off me. And it's also kind of a quote unquote protection stone, as you will.
And what color is this stone?
It is very, very silver and shiny. And so what happened was, as I said that, I kid you not, I felt on my leg something wrap around my cargo pocket, grab into my leg, and I felt that stone go into my leg with pressure.
Really?
Kind of like, you think, you know, this is going to help you right now, buddy?
No.
Let me go ahead and just,
Yes.
you know, remind you who has control here, you know? But the reason why I bring that up is because a lot of my experiences aren't as pronounced, per se, on certain elements. Everybody's receptive to different things. But for that particular moment, you know, it was
Made
like,
you think.
oh yeah, it was like that aha moment where I was like, it just got real.
and you know that's the thing, because you know everybody, you hear everybody talk about, I carry a stone, or I say a prayer,
Or I wear a crystal necklace that does something.
yeah, or a pendulum or whatever. You know, it's they do all these things to,
a pendant.
yeah, pendant. Well, you know what's that? The crap, can't think of the name of it. I'll get it here in a second.
Well, there's lots of charms.
So
I joke and call them lucky charms, but
Well, yeah, there's, you know, all colorful. But, you know, it's everybody says they have a way to, let's just get to the point of protecting themselves towards certain energies. And there's several times where I've done investigations and everybody's like, well, what do you use to protect yourself? And I said, I don't. And they just look at you like, what? And I'm like, I don't have anything to protect myself. And they're like, well, why not? And again, this is my opinion, that you don't know what you're dealing with. So how do you know what to bring in there?
what Dalton is talking about is just the mere fact, you know, with Theory Paranormal, we know that there is a ton of ways and a ton of mindsets that you can prescribe to for belief systems. You know, there's tons of religions, there's tons of ideologies, there's tons of different ways of being spiritual or not, or just simply just saying, no, this is what I believe in. You know, someone's personal belief value. We totally are all about whatever makes anybody happy for what it is they want to do and go forward to be that way. You know, it's never a situation where it's like, oh, I do this. Oh, okay, well, I do this. Oh, well, mine's better. No, mine's better. No, it's not like that. We are all welcoming about anybody's opinion, what anybody's methodology is, when they investigate, and that's when we bring people in, sometimes as guest investigators, to go through the process with me and Dalton, just to see what's what.
Well, I'm talking, and I'm also talking about the protection aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're not here to change anybody's beliefs really, and we're not here to change your religion or your what do I want to say there, any of your thought process. But the protection aspect of it is not about really the thought process or anything. It's your belief. You're right. It's about belief, and you believe that whatever you do, like a lot of people will, prey upon the white light or whatever they do to protect themselves before they go into a haunted place.
Yep, creative visualization,
Okay.
power of thought, energy projection.
So when anybody asks me, why don't I carry something, or why don't I pray, or why don't I do this? Because to me, again, my opinion, because that's what we're doing. We're just sharing our opinions and our experiences. My opinion is, how do you know what to take in there? What if I take in some Christian Baptist stuff, and the entity is shaman, believes in shaman, or believes in some kind of, what if you're near an Indian burial ground and you're dealing with, well, that would be a shaman, right? Indian stuff.
It could be, depending upon the the background of the individual or what they're
Because
part of.
I'll be honest with you, I don't pay attention to none of that stuff. To be honest with you, I really don't. So, but what if you're near, do you think my Christian background or my Baptist background is going to protect me from Indian beliefs or laws of, their gods? And I'm not talking like I'm bringing religion into this. I'm just saying it falls with the protection.
Right.
How do I know? It's kind of like facing a vampire. You ever seen those movies? The guy has no faith, and he pulls a cross out on a vampire, and the vampire laughs and just squashes the cross and says, "You have no faith."
Right.
Okay, so
your conviction about what you believe in is what you're getting at.
but what to believe when you don't know what you're dealing with? Does your belief actually
Trump what's going on?
No matter what goes on.
Right. Right.
Does your single, being that we have so many religions
Mm-hmm.
and so many people believing in things. Now, we're not talking about, you have normal people that pass away and they become spirits or ghosts, whatever you want to call them. You have what I call evil people. So when somebody says we have an evil spirit in the building, to me that's just an evil person that was alive and that they're just evil after they're dead. Then you get to, what's the favorite one? Demonic.
You said the D word.
I did. And that becomes biblical, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's talk about evil and demonic. Okay. In a simple fact, if we walked into an investigation where any of this stuff, like let's just say a malicious entity, one that likes to touch, scratch, do whatever, push you down the stairs. How do you know that your faith, your belief, you're Baptist or Christian or whatever you're doing, you walk in there, to me, that guy is just going to laugh at you because you don't know where that entity come from. You don't know their beliefs, and I believe that you have to match their beliefs to be able to stop them.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, it hardly does. And just to add to that, that is one of the most difficult things. 9 times out of 10, going to a situation, you don't know what you're getting into until you're in the middle of it.
Then sometimes it's too late.
It's too late. You can't go nowhere. You're in the middle, trying to help people.
What about the one you did when you went and then you walk out puking up some black stuff? Was that you?
I'll say this. I ended up doing a particular investigation once, and the fact that I may be sensitive on an intuitive level, we were getting near the location, and what was interesting is I was fine about 15 minutes out. I just remember I was sitting in the vehicle with a bunch of people in the vehicle, the team at the time, and I felt like I got gut punched. Sucker punched in the gut as hard as you could punch somebody. and it made me want to get sick and vomit right then and there. And the intense pain, the burn, did not go away the whole time.
But didn't you get sick with something weird, like you couldn't explain what just came out of your mouth? I mean, I don't mean to be disgusting here, but like sometimes when you talk, I don't understand what came out your mouth. But anyway, didn't you like get sick or something? Didn't something like it just felt weird? You never had that before, and you kind of.
So here's the interesting thing. I like to think in a perfect world it all makes sense, but it really doesn't. Sometimes going to an investigation, you're fine. Okay? Think about laying in a pool on a floaty. And it's sitting there, you're looking at the sun, you're looking at the clouds, and it's serene and quiet. That's your baseline. That is you. That is normal.
That's your 0.2.
And then somebody comes up and kicks their foot in the water, and those ripples come and hit the floaty, and then you start feeling that sensation, even though you couldn't hear them because you got your noise-canceling headphones on.
Mm-hmm.
For me, at least personally, when things get past my baseline and don't feel right, that's when I know something's up. And for that particular instance, I did end up getting sick. And there was no reason to whatsoever. I didn't have a full stomach. I didn't eat anything bad the night before. I know I was hydrated. I drank plenty of water. And next thing I know, I'm vomiting. And it's like, okay, let's do the math here. What is my events today? Well, I'm traveling 3 hours to go do an investigation at a location. Everything is fine up until 15 minutes before, 10 minutes before. And then this happens. And it's like, really? It's one thing for anybody, I hope not, that's ever had experienced food poisoning. Sometimes you feel the buildup. Sometimes it just comes out of nowhere, and you're just going, please make it stop. But for that to happen at that particular point in time, and then me go to the location and then do some investigating, and then it stops abruptly just as quick as it came,
mm-hmm.
You got to ask yourself, like, what type of game is really being played here? How does the other side or the energy or whatever it may be, that entity, know that I was already coming,
Yeah, like they knew. Because you remember that time when we were doing one, and I was, I was in the van, and I was like, man, my chest feels all tight, and we ain't even there yet. And you're like, yeah, I'm not feeling right. And we got there, and we walked up to the doorway, and you could feel like this thing put a barrier at the front door. And it was tough for us to walk through it. Like, literally, it was like walking through sharded glass for me.
Yep.
And you had, like, you didn't, you're not getting cut. You just feel nauseated, sick, whatever. I mean, I can't even describe it really, but this thing put up a barrier so we wouldn't come in the building.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we walked through it, it was horrible, dude, but we got through the door, and then it was like it calmed down a little bit.
Yep.
And then we were able to do our investigation that night. But it is interesting to know that, when you, in what you were doing, you were on a private investigation, I believe.
Correct.
And so it's interesting to know that the person or the entity actually knows that the person called, which I can hear you texting over there. Just so you know. It's funny that, the person that called us or called you to do the investigation, that it's almost like the entity came through the phone and like got on you a little bit and then just waited till the right time to kick you in the gut and say, hey, I don't want you here, kind of thing.
Yeah. And, that's the interesting thing from my experience with investigating is you don't know what you're getting into until you get into it.
And we could say that 100 times.
It doesn't make a difference how much workup you get, and you could be all matter of fact and sit down and be like, hey, here's our case file. I went to do research at the local library. I talked to witnesses. I got my witness statements from the individuals we're going to investigate. Look at all the history chronologically of all the potential environmental factors, which can be pretty in-depth and personal because you need to get the full Monty picture. You really do, on multiple levels. And then you get there, and none of it counts for anything.
No, nothing. Because what about the one? Oh, here's one right here, real quick. St. Albans, St. Albans Sanitarium. I did that with some certain people up there in Virginia. And when I got onto the property, man, my whole body was like it was in a vice. And I couldn't understand exactly why until I found out that this place was located right on a rapid river. And the motion of water, quick moving water, is a
Affects the environment.
yeah, but it's a, what do you want to call it? It's I can't think of the dang
it
word.
being conducive.
Yeah, it's a man. Why can't I think of a word right now?
Yeah, we've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes.
Well, that's fine, but it's a conductor.
Okay.
That's the word I'm looking for. It's a conductor for the paranormal. The rivers, I think it's quartz stone or some certain stones near the river actually conduct enough energy to help the paranormal, do its thing.
All of those type of stones, being able to harness energy, referencing ions and all the different ways that energy's out there.
Right. Think of what do they call them? Well, it's an ion detector or an ion.
Ion reader?
No, the one that puts it out. I forget the name of that. It feeds the room
with positive ions. Oh, you're talking about the air neutralizers?
Yeah, basically what we use to energize the room so they can communicate.
Okay, so you can actually utilize an air purifier for a room. What that does is change the polarity of the ions in the room from positive to negative. So when they get switched to negative, referencing all the dust, it literally falls to the ground. That right there in itself is why when you walk into a room after you have a room purifier kicking for a while, it feels a little bit more lighter, more free going, maybe not as stuffy. So that's what he's referencing.
Yeah, plus they do have stuff you can buy, like the boxes you can buy that you can turn them on and it actually puts out the ions or whatever. Like I said, I'm not that's your department there. So,
well, I actually have a device that's an ion counter, as it's called, and it will literally read a 1 by 1 foot within its environment, and it will give you a number on the display to let you know how many ions are in that footprint. So when you're conducting investigations, depending on how scientific you want to get, you can actually watch the ions either diminish or increase. And the reason why I did that, it's just a method of gauging a form of energy in the environment.
right.
So ultimately, there's many ways to gauge what's going on. It depends on what tools you have at your disposal, obviously your price points of what you have monetarily, and also what's available out there in the economy or people or various ways. I am always pushing the envelope and always trying to find different ways to utilize things to investigate. We have what we see within the paranormal environment genre, and then there's a whole bunch of other things people never think to use.
No, and some things are some of the simplest things to use, and I'm not going to give some of our secrets away because I know very well that once we've been watched before, and some of our tools have been used before, but so yeah. But man, I tell you what, man, this is. I hope everybody that is listening in on this. Yeah, we went an hour and a half on our podcast here, but I hope everybody enjoys what they're listening to, and tell your friends about it if they're into the paranormal and want to hear some interesting, experiences and stories that we have to tell. And we definitely got a whole lot coming up as far as investigation wise, and we will be talking about, investigations that are coming up that are new and giving you the history. And we'll also, every now and then, we'll go back to, say, like Perryville. I like to get into the history of that and, how it became on the investigation there other than what we talked about.
Yep, without a doubt. And like I said, if anybody has any questions or anything they wanted to let us know, please feel free to email us at info at theoryparanormal.com. And we'll be able to get whatever information you want to share with us, or ask us questions, or have us maybe potentially clarify something that you've always thought about or saw, but you just don't want to put it out there.
Send a photo, man. If you know, on sometimes on the Facebook page, I'll have certain people send me a photo or something they've captured,
Or a video, yeah.
video, and have us, and give our opinion on it. I say, if you do send a photo, take 3 or 4 takes. Just make sure you send us 3 or 4 of the same area to take, so we can see before and after and in the middle. Don't just send one photo and say, "Look what I caught," because then I'm going to be like,
We got to be able to play devil's advocate, wear the hat, and try to debunk, and with limited, tools at our disposal, go forth. We have expertises in certain things which we haven't touched base yet on, but we have options to be able to dig in and really see what's what on things.
yeah, I'm very open still to this day to help people figure out what they captured.
So, but with that being said, we'll go ahead and wrap up episode 2 of Theory Paranormal's podcast. We appreciate your time. And as always, don't be afraid to ask questions.